All right, everyone get ready, because today we are going deep on Bad Bunny. This guy went from like stocking groceries in Puerto Rico to the most streamed artist in the world. His music, his career, even his personal life. So we're going to figure out not just who he is, but why he matters so much.
I think it's really interesting how he's become more than just a musician. Like, he's a global icon at this point, pushing boundaries in music and fashion, and even activism. It makes you wonder, what is it about him that just connects with so many people?
Yeah, exactly. So let's go all the way back to the beginning. Bad Bunny, whose real name is Benito Antonio Martinez Ocasio. He was born in 1994 in Vega Baja, Puerto Rico. And from what I read, his childhood wasn't exactly what you'd picture for a global superstar.
Yeah, he wasn't like that street kid you see so much in hip-hop or reggaeton. He was close to his family, kind of a homebody, and that's where his musical journey began, really. His parents listened to everything: salsa, meringue, pop ballads. It's really a mix of everything, which I think explains his eclectic style.
I even read that he sang in the church choir until he was 13. Then he finds artists like Daddy Yankee and Hector Lavoe, and all of a sudden he's writing his own music at 14.
Wow.
Talk about a musical awakening.
I think being exposed to so many different genres when he was young was really key. That's how he's so good at blending Latin trap with pop and rock and even electronic stuff. By 2013, he's putting his music on SoundCloud, just building a fan base from nothing.
So we've got the early influences and the DIY hustle. But how does he go from SoundCloud to headlining the Super Bowl? It seems like 2016 was a pretty big year for him.
Definitely. That's when he releases Dials, and DJ Louis hears it, and he ends up signing him to his label. Then everything changes.
What a domino effect.
Exactly. In 2017, he does Ahora Mi Llama with Perol G, which gets on the Billboard Hot Latin Songs chart, and that's when everyone starts to pay attention.
And then 2018 is just huge E for him. He's featured on Cardi B's I Like It, which hits #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. That's insane.
Yeah, that's massive.
Then he teams up with Drake for Mia, which also climbs the charts. It's like back-to-back collaborations with global superstars. How does that even happen so fast?
Well, he's obviously super talented, but he's also really smart. He's working with the biggest artists in the world, and it just launches him onto the global stage. Then, on Christmas Eve 2018, he drops his debut album, X100 Pre, and this is where we see his vision as an artist.
The album gets amazing reviews. People are calling him a game changer. But it doesn't stop there. In 2019, he releases Oasis, a collaborative album with J Balvin, another Latin music giant. You'd think he'd be happy with topping the charts and selling out arenas. But there's also this other side to him, a social and political side that starts to come out.
Right. He's not just in it for the fame and money. He gets really involved in the protests against the governor of Puerto Rico, Ricardo Rossello. He even releases a protest song with Residente. He's using his fame to speak truth to power, which you don't see very often.
And that activism, that willingness to speak out, it gets even bigger between 2020 and 2021. It's like he hits this level of superstardom we haven't really seen before. He performs at the Super Bowl halftime show with Shakira and Jennifer Lopez. He releases YHLQ-MDLG, which became the highest charting all-Spanish album ever on the Billboard 200. He's breaking records left and right.
And he's not done. He drops a surprise compilation album, Las que no iban a salir. He becomes the first man since Hugh Hefner to be featured solo on the cover of Playboy. And then he releases El Motor del Mundo, which becomes the first all-Spanish album to hit #1 on the Billboard 200. I mean, at this point, he's a global phenomenon.
Yeah, it's not just the music either. He's become this fashion icon, pushing the boundaries with his bold, colorful style. Like, the guy rocks pink and florals and short shorts and manicured nails, and he owns it. What does that say about his impact outside of music?
I think it shows that he's not afraid to challenge traditional masculinity, especially in Latin culture, where those norms can be really strict. He's embracing a more fluid and expressive way of being himself. And that really connects with young people who are questioning those norms. He's become a symbol of individuality and self-expression, and that's a big deal.
And all of this is happening while he's winning awards, breaking streaming records on Spotify, and basically becoming one of the most talked about people in pop culture. I'm starting to see why so many listeners wanted this deep dive. There's so much more to him than hit songs and flashy clothes.
Definitely. What we're seeing is someone who isn't afraid to challenge conventions, to use his fame for good, and most importantly, to be himself. And that's a really powerful combination.
Yeah, it's amazing how he's able to balance that global superstardom with staying true to his roots. Like, he's showing everyone that you can be successful without losing who you are. absolutely.
Yeah.
And that brings us to 2022, which is basically just more of the same, right? His album Un Verano Sin Ti comes out, and of course it debuts at #1 on the Billboard 200. And it stays there for a record-breaking 13 weeks. It's almost like he's saying, I told you so, to the whole world.
Yeah, kind of. He's proving that Spanish language music can be huge all over the world, not just in certain markets. It's really changing things for Latin artists. And then, on top of that, he co-chairs the Met Gala.
Whoa, the Met Gala. That's not just about having a good stylist. That means he's seen as a tastemaker, someone who sets trends, not just follows them.
Exactly. And he's doing it his own way, remember? He's not trying to fit into that typical high fashion image. He's bringing his own style, his Puerto Rican heritage, his playful, sometimes androgynous aesthetic. He's making it mainstream.
Some listeners were asking about that El Muerto movie he was supposed to be in. What happened there?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. It sounds like he's not doing it anymore. Sony took it off their schedule. Maybe it wasn't the right project for him. Or maybe he's got other stuff planned. He doesn't usually talk about what he's working on, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Well, whatever he does, I'm sure it'll be interesting. But before we get too far ahead, I think we should talk about his activism, especially his support for the LGBTQ plus community. He's been really vocal about it, even when it means going against some pretty powerful people in the music industry.
And he's not just talking, He's called out other artists for homophobic comments, raised awareness about violence against transgender people, and even embraced drag culture. Remember that shirt he wore on The Tonight Show that said, "They killed Alexa, not a man in a skirt"? That was a powerful statement about the murder of Alexa Negron Luciano, a transgender woman in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, that was a big moment for me. It made me realize he's really willing to use his fame to fight injustice, even when it might be controversial.
Yeah.
It's fascinating that he's also been open about his own sexuality being fluid.
That's huge, especially in Latin music, where machismo is still a big thing. He's showing that it's okay to be different, to embrace different ways of expressing your gender and sexuality. And it's not just about LGBTQ plus rights either. He's also very connected to his Puerto Rican heritage. And he's been critical of how the government responded to Hurricane Maria.
Yeah, remember when he was part of those protests in 2019 against the governor, Ricardo Rossello? That was really inspiring. It shows that he's not just about making music. He wants to use his influence to make the world a better place. He even started the Good Bunny Foundation to help kids in poverty in Puerto Rico. I mean, this guy's basically a superhero.
He is using his powers for good, that's for sure. And that brings us to something you might not expect, but is actually really cool. Professional wrestling. You wouldn't think those two worlds would mix, but for him, it makes sense.
I know when I first saw the stuff about wrestling, I thought, okay, maybe he's just a fan. But he's actually in the WWE, like getting in the ring and wrestling.
Oh yeah, he's not messing around. He's a lifelong fan, and now he's living out his childhood dream. And he's not bad at it either. He debuted in 2021 performing his song Booker T with Booker T himself. He even won the WWE 24/7 championship.
No way, he's a champion wrestler. What
Yeah.
can't this guy do? I've seen clips of him in a tag team match at WrestleMania 37. He teamed up with Damian Priest and they beat The Miz and John Morrison. He's actually really good.
He was also in the 2022 Men's Royal Rumble, lasted until the final 5 before Brock Lesnar eliminated him, and then in 2023 he hosted and wrestled in WWE Backlash in Puerto Rico. He beat Damian Priest in a San Juan street fight. Can you imagine being there?
I'm getting chills just thinking about it. But it makes you wonder, why would he even get into wrestling? His music career is already so huge, he doesn't need the fame or the money.
I think it's because he's so authentic, and he wants to break down those boundaries between different worlds. He's not going to be put in a box. He's a musician, an activist, a fashion icon, and now a professional wrestler. And he's killing it in all of them. He's showing everyone that you can be multifaceted. You can follow your passions and not let anyone tell you who you have to be.
He does it all with this amazing energy and sense of humor. He doesn't take himself too seriously, which makes him even more likable.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that even when you're super successful, you should still have fun and never stop trying new things.
So as we move into the last part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Bad Bunny's personal life and relationships. He's very private, but we know a few things from what he's said publicly.
Right, he's definitely careful about what he shares, but it's interesting that when he does open up, it's often about things that are seen as taboo or make people uncomfortable. He's talked a lot about his mental health and how important therapy is. Again, he's challenging that idea of what it means to be a man and showing that it's okay to ask for help.
It's great to see a male celebrity, especially in a genre that's so often about machismo. Being so vulnerable, it helps to make those conversations normal. And it makes it easier for other people to get help. Speaking of challenging norms, his relationship with Gabriella Brilingeri, the jewelry designer, was really interesting. Sadly, they broke up at the end of 2022. But they seem to have this really low-key, unconventional dynamic, not your typical celebrity couple, and now there are all these rumors about him and Kendall Jenner.
Right. I think it's important to respect his privacy when it comes to his personal life. But you can't deny that he's not afraid to be seen with strong, independent women who are also challenging the status quo in their own way.
I totally agree. And he just seems to keep evolving, pushing boundaries, never letting us get too comfortable with one version of Bad Bunny.
Exactly. He keeps us guessing, he keeps us interested, and most importantly, he keeps us talking about things that matter.
It's like he's a walking contradiction in a way, but it somehow just works. So this brings us back to our big question. Why does Bad Bunny matter? We've talked about his music, his activism, his personal life, his wrestling. What's the main takeaway here?
I think Bad Bunny represents a huge change in pop culture. He's a global superstar, but he made it on his own terms, without changing who he is or his language or his beliefs. I mean, think about it. He's singing in Spanish, challenging gender norms, using his platform to talk about social justice issues, and he's still topping charts and selling out stadiums all over the world.
Yeah, it's like he rewrote the rules of the game. He's showing that you don't have to conform to be successful, that you can embrace your culture and still connect with people everywhere.
Totally.
His success has opened doors for other Latinx artists too, and made the whole industry rethink what a pop star can be.
And it's not just about representation or breaking language barriers either. He's bringing a level of authenticity and vulnerability to pop music, which can be pretty fake sometimes, you know? He's talking about mental health, challenging machismo, embracing fluidity and his own sexuality. It's just really honest, which is so refreshing. And honestly, we need more of that.
And he does it all with this fun energy, you know? Like he's not taking himself too seriously, even when he's talking about serious stuff. That playfulness, that ability to not be so serious all the time. I think that's a big part of why people love him. He's not preaching, he's just being himself.
Yeah, he's inviting us to come along with him, you know, to question things, to have a good time, to think about the world around us. And that's a really important message, especially for young people, especially now when the world feels so divided and uncertain.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bad Bunny, I'm feeling really inspired. What's the biggest thing that stands out to you? What do you hope our listeners take away from this?
I hope they remember that Bad Bunny shows us we can be ourselves and embrace where we come from, and still achieve incredible things. He broke down language barriers, challenged musical genres, and proved that being real is not just a path to success, it's a way to make a real impact.
He showed us that being different isn't a bad thing, it's actually a strength.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's a message everyone needs to hear.
Absolutely. And it's not just about music or fashion or wrestling, it's about life. It's about finding your own voice, using your platform to do good, and never being afraid to challenge the status quo.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Bad Bunny. It's been a really eye-opening experience, and I have a feeling we're going to be talking about him for a long time.
I think so too. This is just the beginning for Bad Bunny. I can't wait to see what he does next.
And to our listeners, we want to hear from you. What resonated with you the most about Bad Bunny's story? What aspects of his career or his art do you find the most compelling? Share your thoughts with us on social media. We're always listening. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and never be afraid to push boundaries.